The morning briefing tent buzzed with the familiar tension of another high-risk operation. Captain Sarah Rodriguez stepped through the canvas flap, her flight suit crisp despite the early hour. 12 Marines clustered around a tactical map, their faces grim as they studied the mission parameters. Sergeant Martinez looked up from the map, his expression shifting when he saw her. "Great, they sent us the new girl." He turned back to his men. "Looks like we're flying with training wheels today." Corporal Davis snorted. What happened to Johnson? At least he knew how to keep his bird steady during extractions. "Johnson's got experience," Martinez continued, not bothering to lower his voice. 2 tours, 47 combat missions. This one probably just finished flight school. Rodriguez moved closer to the map, studying the terrain features. The target zone sat deep in a narrow canyon, surrounded by hostile territory. "Sergeant, I've reviewed the mission brief. That approach vector you marked puts you directly under enemy observation posts." Martinez barely glanced at her. "We've been doing this longer than you've been flying, sweetheart. Stick to keeping the bird in the air and let us handle the ground tactics." The other Marines exchanged looks. Corporal Thompson folded his arms across his chest. "How many combat hours you got, pilot?" "Enough to know this mission profile has problems," Rodriguez replied, pointing to the map. "Your extraction point is too exposed. If you take fire during pickup, there's no maneuvering room." Private Johnson laughed. "Listen to her, trying to teach Marines about combat zones. Next she'll tell us how to tie our boots." Martinez stepped closer to the map, effectively blocking Rodriguez's view. "Our last pilot never questioned our tactical decisions. He understood his job was flying, not thinking." The sergeant's voice carried that particular military tone that brooked no argument. "Maybe you should focus on not crashing the bird." Anyone else from a military family? Drop your state in the comments. Curious where our service members are watching from. Rodriguez studied the faces around the table. These men had been working together for months, their confidence built on shared experience and proven trust. To them, she represented an unknown variable in an equation where mistakes meant death. "The canyon walls create wind shear that'll affect rotor performance," she said quietly. "I need to know your exact timing to compensate." "Wind shear," Davis repeated mockingly. "Hear that, boys?" The pilot's worried about a little breeze. Thompson shook his head slowly. "Just our luck. Finally get air support, and it's someone who's afraid to fly low." Martinez spread his hands on the table, leaning forward. "Look, this mission happens whether you're comfortable or not. We've got Marines trapped out there, and every minute we waste in here is another minute they're taking fire." "I'm not suggesting we delay," Rodriguez said. "I'm suggesting we do this right." "Right according to who?" Martinez shot back. "Some instructor who never left the simulator?" He gestured toward his squad. "These men have been extracted under fire 6 times in the last month. Never lost anybody. Never had a problem." The tent fell quiet except for the distant sound of helicopters spinning up on the flight line. Rodriguez looked at each face in turn, seeing the same expression reflected back at her. Skepticism mixed with frustration and the particular brand of military impatience that came from dealing with perceived incompetence. "Fine," she said finally. "But when things go sideways in that canyon, remember this conversation." Martinez smiled coldly. "When things go sideways, we'll handle it like we always do. Just try to keep up." The briefing continued as Lieutenant Colonel Hayes entered the tent, his weathered face bearing the weight of command decisions. Martinez straightened immediately, the casual dismissiveness replaced by military precision. "Status report, Sergeant," Hayes said, his eyes scanning the tactical display. "Sir, we're finalizing approach routes for the extraction. Platoon Bravo's been pinned down for 18 hours. Enemy strength estimated at company level." Hayes nodded, then noticed Rodriguez standing at the map's edge. "Captain Rodriguez, correct? You'll be providing close air support for this operation." "Yes, sir. I've identified several concerns with the current flight path." Martinez stepped forward slightly. "Sir, we've run extractions from this LZ before. The pilot's just being cautious." "Cautious?" Hayes raised an eyebrow. "In what way?" Rodriguez moved to the map, pointing to the narrow canyon entrance. The approach requires flying between these ridge lines with less than 50 meters clearance on either side. At that altitude, if we take anti-aircraft fire, there's no room for evasive maneuvers. Corporal Davis shifted his weight, glancing at his teammates. Sir, our previous pilot never had issues with confined spaces. May it look easy. Captain Johnson had different aircraft, Rodriguez replied. The Apache's rotor diameter requires more lateral space than a Black Hawk. Thompson rolled his eyes. Great. So now we're getting excuses before we even launch. Hayes studied the map more carefully. What's your recommendation, Captain? Alternative approach from the south. Longer flight time, but better escape routes if we encounter resistance. Martinez's jaw tightened. Sir, that adds 12 minutes to our flight time. Bravo platoon's already critically low on ammunition. And if we lose the bird trying to thread that needle, they get no support at all, Rodriguez countered. Private Johnson spoke up. With respect, sir, maybe we need a pilot who's actually confident in their abilities. The tent grew quiet. Hayes looked between Rodriguez and the Marines, weighing the competing concerns. How many combat extractions have you performed, Captain? 17 successful missions, sir, but none in terrain this restrictive. Davis muttered something to Thompson, who nodded with obvious skepticism. Martinez's expression suggested he was reconsidering the entire mission profile. The thing is, Captain, Hayes said slowly, these Marines have been working with experienced pilots who adapt to ground conditions. We don't usually redesign missions around aircraft limitations. Rodriguez felt the weight of their collective doubt. Every eye in the tent was measuring her response, looking for signs of the uncertainty they expected to find. Sir, I'm not questioning the mission. I'm questioning whether we're setting ourselves up for failure. Or maybe, Martinez said quietly, you're just not ready for this level of operation. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Rodriguez looked around the group, seeing the same thought reflected in multiple faces. These men had worked with pilots who inspired confidence, who made difficult missions look routine. Hayes checked his watch. Bravo platoon can't wait for perfect conditions. We launch in 30 minutes with the original flight plan. Understood, sir. Martinez began rolling up the map. Let's hope your flying's better than your planning, Captain. As the Marines filed out of the tent, their conversations carried fragments of doubt. Never seen a pilot argue against their own mission. Hope she doesn't freeze up when the shooting starts. Should have requested Johnson back for medical. Rodriguez remained behind, studying the tactical display one final time. The canyon walls seemed to close in even on paper, creating a funnel that would test every aspect of her flying ability. But arguing further would only cement their perception of her as someone who made excuses instead of executing missions. Hayes paused at the tent entrance. Captain, these men have lost friends because air support arrived too late or couldn't perform under pressure. Their skepticism comes from experience, not prejudice. Understand, sir. Good. Because in 30 minutes, you'll have the chance to prove their concerns are unfounded. The tent emptied, leaving Rodriguez alone with the map and the growing weight of expectation. Outside, she could hear the Marines conducting final equipment checks, their voices carrying the particular tension that preceded dangerous operations. None of them sounded optimistic about their air support. 20 minutes later, Rodriguez completed her pre-flight inspection as the Marines loaded into their transport helicopter nearby. The Apache sat ready on the tarmac, its weapons systems armed and fuel tanks topped off. Every gauge showed green, every system functioning within normal parameters. She climbed into the cockpit and began the startup sequence. The twin turbines spooled up with their familiar whine, building to operational speed as she ran through the checklist. Radio chatter filled her headset as various units coordinated the morning's operations. Thunder 1-7, this is ground control. You're cleared for departure. Ground control, Thunder 1-7. Departing for overwatch position. The Apache lifted smoothly from the landing pad, banking south toward the objective area. Below, the landscape shifted from the relative security of the forward operating base to the contested territory where Bravo platoon waited for extraction. Rodriguez climbed to 3,000 feet, establishing a holding pattern 5 kilometers from the target canyon. From this distance, she could monitor radio traffic while staying beyond the range of most ground-based weapons. The transport helicopter carrying Martinez's squad appeared as a distant speck, following a separate route to their insertion point. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. We're 15 minutes out from insertion. Copy, Devil Dog 6. Maintaining overwatch position. The terrain below revealed why this mission carried such high risk. The canyon system cut deep into the mountainous region, creating natural choke points that favor defenders. Rocky walls rose nearly vertical on both sides, leaving little room for aircraft maneuvering. Any helicopter venturing into that space would be committed to a single flight path with limited escape options. Rodriguez studied the topographical features through her targeting system, noting wind patterns and potential hazards. The meteorological data showed increasing thermal activity as the morning sun heated the canyon walls. Crosswinds would be unpredictable, requiring constant corrections to maintain stable flight. All stations, Devil Dog 6. Beginning approach to insertion point. The transport helicopter descended toward a small clearing 3 kilometers from Bravo Platoon's position. Martinez's team would move on foot through difficult terrain, relying on stealth to avoid enemy detection until they reached the trapped Marines. Rodriguez maintained her orbit, monitoring multiple radio frequencies while tracking friendly and hostile positions on her tactical display. Intelligence reports indicated enemy forces had established overlapping fields of fire covering the most obvious approach routes. The trap platoon had already lost 2 men attempting to break out on their own. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. We're on the ground and moving. Copy. I have you on thermal. The next phase required patience. Rodriguez watched Martinez's squad navigate through rocky terrain, their progress marked by occasional position reports. The enemy remained unaware of the rescue attempt, maintaining defensive positions around the canyon where Bravo Platoon had taken shelter. Radio discipline kept communications minimal. Every transmission risked detection by hostile forces monitoring military frequencies. Rodriguez tracked the approaching Marines through her sensors while scanning for signs of enemy movement or weapons emplacements. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. We're in position, beginning final approach to target location. Copy. Standing by. The mission timeline showed everything proceeding according to plan. Martinez's confidence in ground tactics appeared justified as his team moved undetected toward their objective. The canyon remained quiet, with no indication that enemy forces suspected the rescue attempt. Rodriguez adjusted her position slightly, ensuring optimal response time if close air support became necessary. The Apache's weapons systems remained on standby, ready to engage targets within seconds of receiving clearance. Her earlier concerns about the confined space seemed less relevant from a safe distance. All stations, Bravo 7. Friendlies approaching from the south. Do not engage. Bravo 7, Devil Dog 6. We have visual on your position. The link-up appeared successful. Rodriguez watched through her targeting system as heat signatures merged at the bottom of the canyon. Martinez had reached the trapped platoon without compromising the mission or alerting enemy forces to their presence. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. Phase 1 complete. Beginning casualty assessment and preparation for extraction. Copy. Standing by for further instructions. Everything was going exactly as the Marines had predicted. The first 20 minutes of the extraction proceeded smoothly. Rodriguez maintained her overwatch position while Martinez's team organized the wounded Marines for transport. Radio chatter remained minimal and professional as both squads coordinated their movements within the canyon. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. We have 3 casualties requiring immediate medical attention. Requesting clearance for dust-off. Devil Dog 6, cleared for extraction sequence. Transport inbound your location. Rodriguez watched the transport helicopter begin its descent toward the canyon floor. The pilot navigated carefully between the rocky walls, maintaining steady approach despite the challenging terrain. Everything appeared to be unfolding according to plan. Then the enemy opened fire. Muzzle flashes erupted from concealed positions along both sides of the canyon. Automatic weapons fire raked the transport helicopter, forcing the pilot to abort his landing attempt and climb rapidly away from the killing zone. Taking fire. Multiple positions on both ridges. Devil Dog 6 were pinned down. Need immediate suppression. Rodriguez banked the Apache toward the canyon as Martinez's voice crackled over the radio with increasing urgency. Thunder 1-7. We need close air support now. Enemy positions on the north ridge. Devil Dog 6, I have visual on muzzle flashes. Ready to engage. Negative. Friendlies are too close to target area. The situation deteriorated rapidly. Enemy forces had waited for the rescue attempt, using the trapped Marines as bait to draw additional targets into the kill zone. Now both squads were pinned down with limited cover and no clear escape route. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. Can you provide suppressing fire on grid reference 7 Fort Winning? Rodriguez studied her targeting display, identifying the coordinates Martinez had provided. The enemy position sat roughly 200 meters from friendly forces, well within the danger close range for Apache weapon systems. Devil Dog 6, that's danger close for Hellfire missiles. Recommend marking target with smoke. We don't have smoke. They're shooting at anything that moves. The transport helicopters circled at a safe distance, unable to attempt another landing while enemy fire controlled the canyon floor. Additional hostile positions revealed themselves as fighters moved to improve their fields of fire against the trapped Marines. Thunder 1-7. We're taking casualties down here. Either you help us or we're all dead. Rodriguez maneuvered the Apache closer to the canyon entrance, trying to establish visual contact with enemy positions while staying beyond effective range of their weapons. The confined space that had concerned her during mission planning now became a critical factor in combat effectiveness. Devil Dog 6, I can see 3 enemy positions but cannot engage without risk to friendly forces. Then get creative. We need something. Martinez's frustration carried clearly over the radio. His original confidence in ground tactics had evaporated as the enemy demonstrated superior positioning and firepower. The rescue mission had become a trap that threatened to destroy both squads. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. Transport is taking fire and cannot approach. We need alternative extraction. Rodriguez studied the tactical situation, looking for options that wouldn't require flying directly into the canyon's confined space. The enemy had chosen their ambush site well, creating overlapping fields of fire that covered every obvious approach route. Devil Dog 6, I can provide covering fire, but we'll need to enter the canyon to establish effective firing angles. Do whatever you have to do. We're running out of ammunition. The radio crackled with reports of additional casualties as enemy fire intensified. Martinez's squad had accomplished their primary objective of reaching the trap platoon, but now faced the possibility of joining them in a desperate last stand. Thunder 1-7. This is Bravo 7. Enemy forces are massing for an assault. Estimate 30 minutes before they overrun our position. Rodriguez looked at the canyon entrance, measuring the space between rocky walls that had seemed impossibly narrow during mission planning. Everything the Marines had dismissed as excessive caution now stood between them and effective air support. All stations, Thunder 1-7. Beginning approach for close air support. Thunder, be advised that canyon's too narrow for safe maneuvering. Previous air support attempts resulted in aircraft loss. The warning came from an unknown voice, possibly another pilot monitoring the frequency. Rodriguez ignored it, focusing instead on the Marines who were running out of time and options below. The situation on the ground continued to deteriorate as enemy forces pressed their advantage. Rodriguez monitored multiple radio frequencies while calculating approach vectors into the canyon system. Every option carried significant risk, but inaction guaranteed the loss of both Marine squads. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. Enemy forces have moved machine gun positions to cover the main approach route. We're completely pinned down. Copy, Devil Dog 6. I'm analyzing alternative attack vectors. Rodriguez studied her tactical display, noting how enemy positions had adapted to control every obvious flight path. The ambush had been carefully planned, using the canyon's natural features to create an inescapable killing zone for both ground forces and supporting aircraft. Thunder 1-7, Bravo 7. We've lost contact with 2 fire teams. Enemy assault appears imminent. The trapped Marines have been fighting for over 18 hours with dwindling ammunition and medical supplies. Martinez's rescue squad had managed to reach them, but lacked the firepower to break through enemy lines without air support. All stations, this is Colonel Hayes. What's the status on close air support? Rodriguez keyed her microphone carefully. Sir, enemy positions are danger close to friendly forces. Standard engagement procedures require minimum safe distances. Thunder 1-7, we don't have time for standard procedures. Those Marines need immediate assistance. Sir, the canyon walls restrict maneuvering space. One mistake, and we lose the aircraft along with the ground forces. A pause filled the radio frequency before Hayes responded. Captain, are you telling me this mission is impossible? Rodriguez felt the weight of that question. Every pilot listening to the frequency would hear her answer, and the Marines below were counting on someone willing to take the risks necessary to save their lives. Sir, not impossible, just extremely dangerous. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. We're down to 15 minutes of ammunition. Either you try something, or we're all dead anyway. Martinez's voice carried the desperation of a leader watching his men die around him. The confidence he'd shown during mission planning had been replaced by the stark reality of superior enemy firepower and tactical positioning. Devil Dog 6, I understand your situation. Beginning preliminary approach. Rodriguez banked the Apache toward the canyon entrance, studying the narrow gap between rocky walls. Her earlier calculations had been correct about the clearance issues, but mathematical precision meant nothing if Marines died while she maintained safe distances. Thunder 1-7. Be advised multiple aircraft have been lost attempting close support in similar terrain. Recommend requesting additional assets. The warning came from another pilot monitoring the frequency, someone who had apparently witnessed previous failures in confined spaces. Rodriguez acknowledged the transmission, but continued her approach. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. Enemy forces are moving for final assault. This is our last chance. Below in the canyon, muzzle flashes indicated intensifying combat as enemy fighters pressed their attack. The trapped Marines were fighting from whatever cover they could find, but their defensive perimeter was shrinking under sustained pressure. All stations, Thunder 1-7. I'm going to make a run through the canyon, marking enemy positions with rockets, then engaging with chain gun. Thunder, negative. Canyon's too narrow for Apache maneuvering. You'll never make it out. Rodriguez ignored the protest, focusing instead on her approach vector. The canyon entrance loomed ahead, rocky walls rising nearly vertical on both sides. Wind currents created by the morning sun would make precise flying even more difficult. Devil Dog 6, Thunder 1-7. On final approach, mark your positions with whatever you have. Roger, Thunder. We're using signal mirrors to mark friendly locations. Small flashes of reflected sunlight appeared throughout the canyon as Marines used mirrors to identify their positions. The signals helped Rodriguez distinguish between friendly and hostile forces, but also revealed how closely the two sides were intermixed. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. Enemy positions are within 50 meters of our lines. Danger close doesn't begin to describe this situation. Rodriguez reached the canyon entrance and felt the Apache shudder as wind currents grabbed the aircraft. The space between walls was exactly as narrow as she had calculated, leaving minimal room for error during weapons runs. All stations, Thunder 1-7. Beginning attack run. Danger close engagement authorized by ground commander. The Apache entered the canyon. The canyon walls closed around the Apache as Rodriguez committed to the attack run. Rock formations passed within meters of the rotor blades, creating a tunnel effect that amplified every sound and vibration. Wind shear from the heated canyon walls buffeted the aircraft unpredictably. Rodriguez fought the controls to maintain stable flight while scanning for target acquisition. Enemy muzzle flashes provided clear indicators of hostile positions, but the proximity to friendly forces required precision that pushed beyond normal engagement parameters. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. Enemy machine gun, nest at your 2 o'clock, approximately 60 meters from our position. Rodriguez acquired the target through her heads-up display, noting the dangerous proximity to Marines taking cover behind scattered boulders. The margin for error had shrunk to mere meters, requiring split-second timing and perfect accuracy. Devil Dog 6, target acquired. Engaging with chain gun. The Apache's 30mm cannon fired in controlled bursts, sending high-explosive rounds into the enemy position. Secondary explosions indicated ammunition stores detonating as the machine gun nest disappeared in a cloud of smoke and debris. Direct hit. Direct hit. Enemy position neutralized. Rodriguez banked hard left to avoid enemy fire from the opposite canyon wall. The Apache's rotor washed, creating dust clouds that obscured visibility for everyone below. The confined space made every maneuver critical, as a single mistake would send the aircraft into solid rock. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. Multiple targets on the north wall, approximately 200 meters ahead of your position. Enemy fighters had positioned themselves in cave openings and rock crevices, using the natural fortifications to maintain cover while engaging the trapped Marines. Rodriguez adjusted her attack vector, threading between canyon walls while lining up shots on targets that appeared and disappeared among the rocky terrain. Engaging north wall positions. Rocket pods released marking rounds that streaked toward enemy positions, creating smoke clouds that identified target areas for follow-up attacks. The confined space amplified the explosive effects, sending rock fragments cascading down the canyon walls. Good hits. Good hits. Enemy fire from the north wall has stopped, but success in one area only revealed additional problems. Enemy forces had prepared multiple fallback positions, creating overlapping fields of fire that covered different sections of the canyon. As Rodriguez eliminated one threat, others emerged from concealment. Thunder 1-7, be advised, enemy forces are repositioning to your 6 o'clock. Anti-aircraft weapons moving into position. Rodriguez checked her mirrors and threat warning systems, noting hostile movement behind her current location. The canyon's linear nature prevented quick escape maneuvers, forcing her to continue forward while enemy forces established firing positions in her wake. Devil Dog 6, I'm taking fire from behind. Need to complete this run and exit through the far end. Roger, Thunder. We're moving to consolidate positions while you have them suppressed. Rodriguez continued through the canyon, engaging targets of opportunity while maintaining forward momentum. The Apache responded sluggishly in the confined space, every control input requiring compensation for wind effects and proximity to solid obstacles. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. Large enemy formation moving toward our position from the east. Estimate platoon strength. The tactical situation was evolving rapidly as enemy reinforcements arrived to exploit their temporary advantage. Rodriguez realized that her current attack run, while successful in suppressing immediate threats, could not address the larger strategic problem facing the trapped Marines. Devil Dog 6, I can see the reinforcements. They're using the eastern approach route to avoid your fields of fire. Can you engage them? Rodriguez studied the approaching enemy formation, noting their distance from friendly forces and the available attack vectors. Engaging this new threat would require exiting the current canyon and approaching from a different direction. Negative. Too far from current position and friendly forces are between me and the targets. The Apache reached the far end of the canyon, emerging into open airspace where maneuvering became possible again. Rodriguez climbed rapidly to gain altitude and assess the overall tactical situation from a safer distance. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. That run bought us some breathing room, but we're still surrounded. Enemy reinforcements will be in position within 10 minutes. Rodriguez banked into a wide turn, studying the terrain for alternative approach routes that could address the new threats while avoiding the dangers of the narrow canyon passage. Rodriguez circled at altitude, studying the enemy reinforcements moving into position around the canyon. The successful gun run had provided temporary relief, but the tactical situation continued to deteriorate as additional hostile forces arrived to overwhelm the trapped Marines. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. Enemy reinforcements have reached firing positions on the eastern ridge. We're taking heavy fire from multiple directions. Copy, Devil Dog 6. I can see their positions, but cannot engage from current altitude without risking friendly fire. The problem had become more complex than simple close air support. Enemy forces now controlled 3 sides of the canyon, creating interlocking fields of fire that prevented Marine movement while preparing for a coordinated assault that would overrun both squads. Thunder 1-7, this is Colonel Hayes. What's your assessment of the tactical situation? Rodriguez keyed her microphone carefully, aware that multiple units were monitoring her analysis. Sir, enemy forces have achieved tactical superiority through superior positioning and numbers. Ground forces require immediate extraction or reinforcement. Extraction is impossible with current enemy fire controlling the landing zones. Can you suppress enough positions to create an opening? Rodriguez studied the terrain, noting how enemy forces had learned from a previous attack run. They had positioned anti-aircraft weapons to cover the canyon entrance, while maintaining dispersed positions that would require multiple attack runs to eliminate. Sir, traditional suppression would take too long. By the time I clear enough positions, the assault will have overrun friendly forces. Then what do you recommend, Captain? The question carried weight beyond simple tactical advice. Rodriguez realized that Hayes was asking whether she believed the mission had become impossible, whether the Marines below should prepare for a last stand rather than hoping for salvation from air support. Sir, there might be an alternative approach, but it would require flying through terrain that's never been attempted with an Apache. A pause filled the radio frequency. Hayes was clearly considering the implications of Rodriguez's statement, weighing the risks of an unprecedented maneuver against the certainty of losing both Marine squads. Explain your alternative approach. Rodriguez activated her terrain mapping system, highlighting a route that followed a narrow ridge line above the canyon. The passage was barely wide enough for helicopter transit, requiring precision flying through rock formations that created a natural tunnel. Sir, there's a ridge passage that would allow approach from an unexpected vector. The enemy hasn't positioned anti-aircraft weapons there because they consider it impassable for aircraft. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. Whatever you're planning, you better do it fast. Enemy assault teams are moving into final positions. Rodriguez could hear the stress in Martinez's voice as the situation became increasingly desperate. The sergeant who had questioned her capabilities during mission planning now depended entirely on her willingness to attempt something that conventional wisdom deemed impossible. Devil Dog 6. The ridge approach would put me directly above enemy positions with minimal warning time. But the passage is extremely narrow with multiple turns and elevation changes. How narrow are we talking about? Hayes asked. Rodriguez checked her calculations again, comparing aircraft dimensions to the available clearance. Sir, approximately 15 meters of clearance on each side. Any deviation from the center line results in collision with solid rock. Thunder 1-7. This is Eagle Eye. I've been monitoring your frequency. Multiple aircraft have been lost attempting similar maneuvers in confined terrain. Recommend against attempting passage. The warning came from an Air Force controller who had apparently been tracking the mission development. Rodriguez acknowledged the transmission but continued studying her planned route through the ridge system. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. We can hear enemy forces preparing for final assault. Whatever you're going to do it now. Rodriguez banked toward the ridge entrance, noting how the rocky passage twisted through multiple elevation changes before emerging directly above the enemy positions. The route would require flying through a natural tunnel barely wider than the Apache's rotor diameter. All stations, Thunder 1-7. Beginning approach through Devil's Backbone Ridge Passage. If successful, will engage enemy positions from above at close range. Thunder, that passage has never been flown by rotary wing aircraft. Recommend alternative approach. Rodriguez ignored the protest, focusing instead on the ridge entrance that loomed ahead like the mouth of a cave. The Apache would have to maintain perfect position while navigating through turns and elevation changes that would test every aspect of her flying ability. Devil Dog 6, Thunder 1-7. Beginning final approach. Mark enemy positions for immediate engagement upon emergence. Roger, Thunder. We're ready. The Apache approached the ridge entrance as Rodriguez made final calculations for the most dangerous flying she had ever attempted. The rocky passage twisted through multiple turns, each requiring precise timing and perfect aircraft control to avoid catastrophic collision. Thunder 1-7, Eagle Eye. Radar shows you approaching Devil's Backbone. Strongly advise abort and select alternative target. Rodriguez ignored the warning, focusing instead on the narrow opening between towering rock formations. The passage ahead disappeared into shadows, creating a tunnel effect that would eliminate all visual references except the rocky walls that could destroy her aircraft with a single mistake. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. Enemy assault teams are in position, beginning final approach to our lines. The urgency in Martinez's voice confirmed that time had run out for conventional solutions. Rodriguez either succeeded with her unprecedented maneuver or watched both Marine squads die in the canyon below, while enemy forces achieved total tactical victory. Devil Dog 6, beginning passage through Devil's Backbone. Estimate 2 minutes to emergence above enemy positions. Rodriguez reduced airspeed and entered the rocky passage, immediately feeling the Apache respond to wind currents channeled between the narrow walls. Every control input required instant compensation as the aircraft fought to maintain stable flight in the confined space. The first turn approached rapidly, requiring a banking maneuver that brought the rotor tips within meters of solid rock. Rodriguez felt sweat forming despite the controlled cockpit environment as she guided the Apache through the curve while maintaining precise altitude. Thunder 1-7, this is Reaper 6. I'm monitoring your position through thermal imaging. You're showing minimal clearance on both sides. Copy, Reaper 6. Continuing through passage. The second turn proved even more challenging, combining a direction change with a significant altitude drop that compressed the available maneuvering space. Rodriguez adjusted power settings while fighting crosswinds that threatened to push the Apache into the canyon walls. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. We can hear your rotors echoing through the canyon system. Enemy forces are reacting to unexpected aircraft noise from above. Rodriguez pushed through the third turn, noting how each maneuver required increasingly precise timing as the passage narrowed and the turns became more severe. The Apache's rotor wash created dust clouds that reduced visibility while the rocky walls amplified every sound. Eagle Eye, Thunder 1-7. Request tactical update on enemy positions below. Thunder, enemy forces are repositioning anti-aircraft weapons toward your projected emergence point. They're tracking your approach through audio signatures. The enemy adaptation confirmed Rodriguez's earlier assessment about their tactical competence. They had recognized the threat from an unexpected vector and were adjusting their defenses accordingly. But the ridge passage still offered the element of surprise. Devil Dog 6, Thunder 1-7. Approaching final turn before emergence. Prepare for immediate engagement of enemy positions. Roger, Thunder. We're marking targets with infrared strobes. Rodriguez navigated the final turn, a sweeping curve that combined direction change with a steep climb toward the emergence point. The Apache fought against conflicting wind currents while she maintained the precise flight path necessary to avoid collision. Thunder 1-7, Reaper 6. You're approaching the narrowest section of the passage. Clearance is down to 10 meters on each side. Rodriguez felt the aircraft shudder as rotor wash interacted with the rocky walls, creating vibrations that threatened to destabilize flight control. Every gauge showed systems operating at maximum stress levels as the Apache pushed through conditions never intended for rotary wing aircraft. Thunder 1-7, Eagle Eye. Multiple hostile contacts are repositioning weapons toward your emergence point. You'll be taking fire immediately upon exit. The emergence point loomed ahead, a bright opening that led to the canyon where enemy forces waited with anti-aircraft weapons positioned to engage her aircraft the moment it appeared. Rodriguez prepared weapons systems while maintaining the precise flying necessary to complete the passage. Devil Dog 6, Thunder 1-7. 30 seconds to emergence. All friendly personnel take cover. Roger, Thunder. We're down and ready. Rodriguez reached the final approach to the emergence point, noting how the passage walls suddenly opened to reveal the canyon below. Enemy positions were clearly visible, their weapons trained upward toward the opening where her Apache would appear within seconds. All stations, Thunder 1-7. Emerging from Devil's Backbone Passage now. The Apache burst through the emergence point like a predator striking from above. Rodriguez found herself directly over enemy positions with a tactical advantage that no conventional approach could have achieved. The rocky passage had delivered her aircraft exactly where intelligence had predicted maximum enemy concentration. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. You're directly above their command post. Multiple targets at your 12 o'clock. Rodriguez immediately identified the enemy command structure, noting communication equipment and weapons caches that indicated this position coordinated the entire ambush operation. Eliminating this target would disrupt enemy coordination and create confusion among their dispersed forces. Devil Dog 6, engaging command post with Hellfire missiles. The first missile streaked downward with devastating precision, destroying the command post in a massive explosion that sent secondary detonations rippling through ammunition stores. Enemy fighters scattered from their positions as their coordinated defense collapsed into chaos. Direct hit. Direct hit. Enemy command structure is completely destroyed. But Rodriguez's emergence had not gone unnoticed. Anti-aircraft weapons that had been repositioned during her passage through Devil's Backbone immediately opened fire, filling the air with tracer rounds and explosive shells designed to bring down her aircraft. Thunder 1-7, taking heavy anti-aircraft fire from multiple positions. Evasive maneuvers. Rodriguez banked hard left while releasing chaff and flares to confuse incoming missiles. The Apache responded sluggishly after the stress of navigating the narrow passage, its systems still operating at maximum capacity from the unprecedented maneuver. Thunder 1-7, Eagle Eye. I'm tracking multiple surface-to-air missiles inbound your position. Recommend immediate egress. Negative, Eagle Eye. Ground forces still require fire support. Rodriguez rolled the Apache into an aggressive diving turn, using the canyon walls as cover while engaging enemy anti-aircraft positions with chain gunfire. Each burst found its target, silencing weapons that had been positioned to control the airspace above the trapped Marines. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. Enemy forces are breaking contact and withdrawing from eastern positions. The psychological effect of Rodriguez's unexpected emergence had shattered enemy morale. Fighters who had been preparing for final assault now abandoned their positions, retreating toward escape routes that would take them away from the devastating air support that had appeared without warning. Devil Dog 6, I can see enemy withdrawal routes. Engaging with rockets to prevent regrouping. Rodriguez fired marking rockets into likely assembly areas, creating barriers of explosive debris that channeled enemy movement away from the Marine positions. The canyon that had been a trap for friendly forces now became a killing zone for retreating hostile fighters. Thunder 1-7. This is Colonel Hayes. Outstanding work, Captain. What's your assessment of remaining enemy capability? Rodriguez studied her tactical display while maintaining evasive maneuvers against sporadic anti-aircraft fire. The coordinated enemy defense had collapsed, but scattered resistance remained dangerous to ground forces attempting movement. Sir, enemy command structure is destroyed and most organized resistance has withdrawn. Remaining threats are isolated positions that lack coordination. Can you clear a landing zone for medical evacuation? Rodriguez identified a section of canyon floor that offered sufficient space for helicopter operations while remaining beyond effective range of remaining enemy weapons. Creating a secure landing zone would require eliminating 2 final machine gun positions. Sir, I can clear grid reference 743 from medical evacuation. Requires engagement of 2 remaining strongpoints. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. We have wounded Marines who need immediate medical attention. Whatever you can do to speed up extraction. Rodriguez rolled into her final attack run, noting how the Apache systems had stabilized after the stress of the ridge passage. The aircraft responded normally as she lined up on the remaining enemy positions that threatened the evacuation zone. Devil Dog 6, engaging final resistance. Medical helicopter cleared for approach in 2 minutes. The chain gun fired in controlled bursts, systematically eliminating the last organized resistance around the landing zone. Secondary explosions indicated ammunition stores detonating as enemy positions disappeared under accurate fire. All enemy resistance neutralized. Landing zone is secure. Rodriguez climbed to Overwatch altitude as the medical helicopter began its approach to extract wounded Marines. The mission that had seemed impossible during morning briefing had been accomplished through flying that pushed beyond established limits. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. All casualties are loaded and medical helicopter is departing. Mission complete. Copy, Devil Dog 6. Outstanding work by all personnel. Rodriguez maintained Overwatch position until both Marine squads have been successfully extracted from the canyon. The radio frequencies that had carried desperate pleas for assistance now carried congratulations and expressions of disbelief at what they had witnessed. The Apache screamed over the ridge in under 8 seconds, emerging from Devil's Backbone Passage with a precision that defied everything the observers believed possible. Rodriguez had threaded the aircraft through rocky walls that no pilot had ever attempted, delivering devastating firepower exactly where it was needed most. Jesus Christ. Did you see that? Martinez's voice crackled over the radio, his professional composure shattered by what he had witnessed. She just flew through solid rock. Rodriguez rolled into her attack pattern, the Apache responding flawlessly as weapon systems engaged multiple targets simultaneously. Hellfire missiles streaked toward enemy positions while the chain gun eliminated threats with surgical precision, creating a symphony of destruction that transformed the tactical situation in seconds. Thunder 1-7, Eagle Eye. I'm showing your emergence time at 7.8 seconds through Devil's Backbone Passage. That's physically impossible according to our flight manual specifications. The tactical display showed enemy forces scattering in complete disarray as their coordinated defense collapsed under the unexpected assault. Rodriguez had achieved total surprise by accomplishing something that every pilot monitoring the frequency considered beyond the capabilities of rotary wing aircraft. Thunder 1-7, this is Reaper 6. I've been flying Apaches for 12 years, and I would never attempt that passage. How did you calculate the clearance margins? Rodriguez continued engaging targets while fielding radio calls from pilots who were struggling to comprehend what they had observed. The ridge passage that had been dismissed as impassable had become a textbook example of precision flying under impossible conditions. Reaper 6 clearance calculations were based on rotor diameter versus passage width, adjusted for wind effects and maneuvering requirements. Thunder, those calculations would show insufficient margin for safe passage. How did you compensate for the error factors? Rodriguez banked into a climbing turn while suppressing the final enemy positions, her aircraft performing flawlessly despite the extreme stress of the ridge passage. Every system showed normal operation, contradicting the predictions of catastrophic failure that had discouraged previous attempts. Reaper 6 error factors were minimized through precise flight path adherence and power management techniques. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. I don't know what we just witnessed, but you saved every life down here. That was the most incredible flying I've ever seen. Martinez's acknowledgement carried a weight that transcended simple military appreciation. The sergeant who had questioned Rodriguez's capabilities during mission planning now understood that he had witnessed something extraordinary, a demonstration of pilot skill that redefined what was possible. Thunder 1-7, this is Colonel Hayes. I've been coordinating air operations for 15 years, and I've never seen anything comparable to what you just accomplished. That maneuver will be studied at every flight school. Rodriguez completed her final attack run, noting how the Apache had responded throughout the engagement despite operating under conditions that pushed every system beyond normal parameters. The aircraft had performed exactly as designed, limited only by pilot skill rather than mechanical constraints. Thunder 1-7, Eagle Eye. I'm required to report that you've achieved something that contradicts established flight safety protocols. The ridge passage is classified as impassable for rotary wing aircraft. Eagle Eye, Thunder 1-7. Classification may require updating based on demonstrated capabilities. The radio frequency buzzed with conversations between pilots who were analyzing every aspect of Rodriguez's performance. The emergence from Devil's Backbone had been recorded by multiple thermal imaging systems, providing objective data that confirmed the impossible had been accomplished. Thunder 1-7, this is Ghost Rider. I was monitoring your approach through the passage. Your rotor clearance was less than 5 meters on multiple turns. How did you maintain stable flight in those conditions? Rodriguez descended to Overwatch altitude, while enemy forces continued their disorganized retreat. The tactical situation had been completely reversed through flying that demonstrated capabilities no one had believed existed within the Apache's performance envelope. Ghost Rider, stable flight, required constant correction for wind effects and precise power management throughout the passage. Thunder, those wind effects should have made controlled flight impossible. The canyon walls create turbulence that exceeds aircraft design limits. Rodriguez monitored the successful extraction of both Marine squads while fielding additional questions from pilots who were requesting detailed technical explanations. The ridge passage had become an instant legend, a demonstration that would influence helicopter tactics for years to come. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. All personnel are clear of the objective area. You turned an impossible situation into a textbook rescue operation. The acknowledgement from Martinez represented more than mission success. Rodriguez had proven that exceptional pilot skill could overcome limitations that others accepted as absolute, demonstrating capabilities that expanded the boundaries of what was considered possible in rotary wing aviation. The immediate aftermath of Rodriguez's emergence brought a stunned silence across multiple radio frequencies as pilots and ground controllers struggled to process what they had witnessed. The Apache continued its overwatch pattern while extraction helicopters approached the now secure landing zone. Thunder 1-7, this is Air Boss. I need confirmation on your passage time through Devil's Backbone. Multiple radar stations are showing conflicting data. Rodriguez checked her mission recorder, noting the precise timing that had been automatically logged during the passage. Air Boss, passage time was 7.8 seconds from entrance to emergence. Thunder, that's impossible. Our calculations show minimum safe passage time at 15 seconds, and that's assuming perfect conditions with no margin for error. Corporal Davis's voice cut through the technical discussion with raw emotion. I don't care about your calculations. We watched her come screaming over that ridge like she was shot out of cannon. Saved every one of our lives. Rodriguez monitored the extraction process while additional aircraft arrived to provide security overwatch. The tactical situation had stabilized completely, with enemy forces in full retreat and no organized resistance remaining in the operational area. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. How did you know that passage was even possible? Every briefing I've seen classifies Devil's Backbone as a no-flee zone. Devil Dog 6, detailed terrain analysis, showed sufficient clearance for careful navigation. Risk assessment indicated acceptable margins under emergency conditions. Thompson's voice carried a mixture of disbelief and newfound respect. Acceptable margins? You had maybe 10 feet of clearance on each side while flying through solid rock walls. The extraction helicopters touched down successfully, medical personnel immediately beginning treatment of wounded Marines while the remaining personnel prepared for departure. Rodriguez's successful mission had transformed a potential disaster into a routine evacuation. Thunder 1-7. This is Dustoff 7. All casualties are loaded and we're departing the area. Outstanding work on clearing that landing zone. Rodriguez acknowledged the medical helicopter while maintaining her protective orbit around the extraction site. The Apache's weapons systems remained ready, though organized enemy resistance had completely collapsed following the devastating attack from an impossible vector. Thunder 1-7, Eagle Eye. I'm required to file a formal report on your passage through Devil's Backbone. The maneuver exceeded all established safety parameters. Eagle Eye understood. Flight data recorder captured complete telemetry for analysis. Martinez's squad completed their boarding procedures as the final transport helicopter prepared for departure. The sergeant who had questioned Rodriguez's capabilities during morning briefing now represented a completely different perspective on pilot competence. Thunder 1-7, Devil Dog 6. I owe you an apology. What you did today redefined everything I thought I knew about helicopter capabilities. Devil Dog 6, no apology necessary. Mission success was the priority. Rodriguez watched the transport helicopters depart the canyon, carrying Marines who had been written off as casualties just hours earlier. The successful extraction represented more than tactical victory. It demonstrated that exceptional skill could overcome limitations others accepted as absolute. Thunder 1-7, this is Colonel Hayes. I want you to know that multiple general officers monitored this operation. Your performance will be analyzed at the highest levels of military aviation. The Apache climbed to transit altitude as Rodriguez prepared for the return flight to base. Below, the canyon that had nearly become a graveyard for two Marine squads now stood empty except for the debris of enemy equipment destroyed during the engagement. Thunder 1-7, Ghost Rider. I've been flying combat missions for 8 years, and I've never seen anything comparable to your Ridge Passage. That maneuver will become legendary. Rodriguez acknowledged the praise while reviewing her aircraft systems, noting that every component had performed flawlessly despite operating under extreme conditions. The Apache had demonstrated capabilities that exceeded its own design specifications when operated by a pilot willing to push beyond conventional limits. Thunder 1-7, this is Reaper 6. Every pilot monitoring this frequency wants to know how you developed the skills necessary for that passage. Standard training doesn't cover anything close to those conditions. Reaper 6, precision flying requires understanding aircraft capabilities beyond published limitations. Training focused on maximum performance under emergency conditions. The radio conversations continued as Rodriguez headed home, with pilots requesting technical details about power management, wind compensation, and clearance calculations. The Ridge Passage had instantly become a case study in advanced helicopter tactics. Thunder 1-7, Air Boss. Your mission will be mandatory viewing at every flight school. You've expanded the operational envelope for Apache operations. Rodriguez smiled as her base appeared on the horizon, knowing that the Marines who had questioned her competence now understood the difference between textbook flying and exceptional performance under impossible conditions. 3 hours later, Rodriguez touched down at the forward operating base to find an unprecedented reception waiting on the flight line. Word of the Devil's Backbone passage had spread throughout the entire aviation community, drawing pilots and ground personnel who wanted to see the aircraft that had accomplished the impossible. Martinez approached the Apache as Rodriguez completed her shutdown procedures, his earlier skepticism replaced by genuine respect. "Captain, I need to say something. This morning I questioned whether you belonged on this mission. I was wrong about everything." Rodriguez climbed down from the cockpit, noting how the gathered crowd included senior officers who had arrived specifically to debrief the unprecedented maneuver. Chief among them was General Morrison, whose presence indicated the highest levels of military leadership were taking notice. "Sergeant Martinez, you were protecting your Marines based on past experience. That's exactly what good leaders should do." Colonel Hayes stepped forward, carrying a preliminary mission report that would be forwarded to Pentagon analysts within hours. "Captain Rodriguez, I've been coordinating helicopter operations for 15 years. What you accomplished today will change how we think about Apache capabilities." The assembled pilots represented every helicopter unit operating in the region, all of whom had monitored the radio frequencies during the rescue operation. Their expressions reflected a mixture of professional admiration and disbelief at the flying they had witnessed. "Captain, how did you know the Ridge Passage was even possible?" asked Major Williams, the senior Apache pilot for the entire theater of operations. "Every terrain analysis we've conducted shows Devil's Backbone as impassable for rotary wing aircraft." Rodriguez studied the faces around her, recognizing the genuine desire to understand techniques that could save lives in future operations. "Major, detailed analysis showed marginal clearance under optimal conditions. The emergency situation justified accepting higher risk levels." General Morrison stepped closer, his weathered features reflecting decades of aviation experience. "Captain, I've reviewed the preliminary flight data. Your emergence time indicates flying techniques that exceed published performance parameters. How did you develop those capabilities?" "Sir, training focused on maximum aircraft utilization under emergency conditions, understanding true performance limits rather than conservative operational guidelines." Corporal Davis approached with obvious respect, his earlier mockery completely absent. "Ma'am, I want to thank you personally. My squad leader took shrapnel during the firefight. Without your precision flying, he'd be dead right now." The personal testimonial carried more weight than any official commendation. Rodriguez had not only demonstrated exceptional flying skills, but had translated those abilities into saved lives, the ultimate measure of military aviation success. "Thunder 1-7, this is Eagle Eye." The radio call came from the air traffic controller who had monitored the entire operation. "Final analysis confirms your passage time at 7.8 seconds through a corridor our computers classify as impossible for Apache transit." Thompson moved through the crowd, extending his hand with genuine appreciation. "Captain, I owe you more than an apology. You turned what looked like a suicide mission into a textbook rescue operation." Rodriguez shook hands with Marines who had questioned her competence just hours earlier, noting how shared combat experience had transformed professional relationships. The successful mission had proven that exceptional performance could overcome any initial skepticism. "Captain Rodriguez, your flight data will be analyzed by test pilots at Edwards Air Force Base," General Morrison announced. "The techniques you demonstrated could revolutionize helicopter tactics for the entire military." The debriefing continued for another hour as aviation specialists documented every aspect of the Ridge Passage. Rodriguez answered technical questions, while maintenance personnel conducted detailed inspections of her aircraft, searching for stress indicators that might reveal the true demands of the unprecedented maneuver. "Ma'am, all systems show normal wear patterns," reported the crew chief. "Whatever you did out there, the bird handled it perfectly. As the crowd finally dispersed, Martinez lingered near the Apache with obvious reluctance to end the conversation. "Captain, I've been leading Marines for 12 years. I thought I knew what professional competence looked like. Today you showed me something completely different." Rodriguez secured her flight equipment while considering how the morning's skepticism had been transformed into respect through demonstrated performance under impossible conditions. The Marines who had questioned her abilities now understood the difference between adequate flying and exceptional skill. "Sergeant, your Marines performed perfectly under extreme pressure. This mission succeeded because everyone did their job at the highest level." Martinez smiled with genuine warmth. "Ma'am, if I ever find myself in another impossible situation, I hope you're the one providing air support." "What did you think of Thunder's Canyon run? Ever seen flying skills that left you speechless?" The ridge passage that military experts had declared impossible had become a legendary demonstration of what exceptional pilots could accomplish when lives depended on pushing beyond accepted limitations. Rodriguez walked toward the debriefing room, knowing that her morning of questioned competence had ended with respect earned through performance that would be studied for decades to come.